One thing that I cannot stand is people who say that suffering is a good thing or that it's beautiful or whatever. You will hear these people say garbage about how suffering builds character and you need it to grow or whatever. But there is such a thing as suffering too much. There are those who have suffered too much. That's just how it is. When people refuse to acknowledge this, that is a major red flag to me. It's a red flag that warns me that they have a serious problem involving a lack of empathy for those who have suffered far more than they have. And you know what? I think people who are anti-natalists actually have more empathy than everybody else. When it comes to others suffering, they have a lot of it. But I genuinely think that the majority of people in this world are just psychopaths anyways. The majority of them certainly are. There are those who have suffered so much that they are beyond recovery, and a lot of the time it's through no fault of their own. It just happens to them. Suffering just finds them. And I don't understand people who can be okay with that. Suffering isn't beautiful. It's horrible. And there's more than one kind of suffering. There are minor types of suffering that, I suppose, aren't that bad. But there are some types of suffering that are just so horrible that they are beyond imagination. Well, not really beyond imagination, but they are extreme. They are the extreme of what you can imagine. And people and animals have experienced it. And you know that someone is a psychopath when they have no empathy for those who have suffered that much. Earlier today, I was arguing with a couple of literal psychopaths in a YouTube comment section. And I got a little angrier than I probably should have. But I had good reasons to be angry. Because the problem that these people have is their lack of empathy for others who are suffering. That is their problem, and they refuse to acknowledge it because, for whatever reason, they don't even see it as a problem. They think they're totally fine. They think it's totally fine to tell people that they haven't suffered enough and that it's worth it to endure it. You don't have the right to tell others that. And what too much suffering means is going to be different for every person, of course. But it's certainly the case that the most extreme suffering is going to be horrible for anyone who experiences it. So, just to use an example, let's say somebody gets hit by a drunk driver and their car catches on fire and they burn to death. Well, to me, that's too much suffering right there. There are those who have suffered so much that it has caused them to end their life. And it doesn't mean that the person that's ended their life is in the wrong. What it means is the suffering they experienced was too much for them. It means that not only is the suffering too much, but it affected them in such a tremendously horrible way that recovering from it was impossible. And sometimes that is the case. And when people say that suffering is a good thing, they only say that when it's not them being affected by it. I've noticed. Because I bet if they were in the shoes of the sufferer, if it was happening to them, they would suddenly change their tune, more than likely, and would want it to stop. And I may be one of those people who has suffered too much, to the point where recovery is impossible. And while I still have addictions that keep me around, addictions that do help me feel better on a bad day, I still think I've suffered far too much in this life. A life that I was literally forced into when I was brought into it, kicking and screaming in the first place. That's where all of my problems honestly started, the moment I was born. When my parents brought me into this world, they did something horrible to me right then. And I think what they did to me was unforgivable, bringing me into this world of suffering and death and all kinds of other horrors you can imagine. They didn't bring me into this world because they loved me. They brought me here for purely selfish reasons. And then expected me to just be okay with it. Typical breeders. That's all my parents were. That's all they are to me. But yeah, those who have suffered too much understand and are able to empathize with others who are also suffering too much. I know I rambled on a little while here, but I think I'm going to end this here, because I am really tired right now.